Today we've got to cover our transmission tunnel up with a transmission cover, and we've got to retrofit it to fit our LS wiring harness that's all over the cab making a mess right now. Most people run a harness through the firewall. We're running it right through the floor. If you want to see this all come together, stick around. What's up, guys, and welcome back to In the Shop TV. My name is Mike, and that's my 1955 Chevy truck behind me. We've been working on this project for about a little over a year and a half now, and we're finally getting somewhere with the cab on it. It's LS powered, and we were originally going to go with a 4L60 transmission for this. There's a lot of chatter online about how they suck and they blow up and they're not good transmissions. That's only true if you're trying to wallop on the thing and race it in its stock form. But if you just want a cruiser, there's nothing wrong with the 4L60 at all. However, this is a Gen 4 LY6 6.0 engine that we have behind us, and what it was originally mated to was a 6L80 transmission. And when you have a configuration that was already mated like that, just for the ease of programming and making your computer and your LS swap simple and seamless, it's good to go with what the computer's already programmed for. So we went with the 6L80 transmission. The only issue that I have with that is that the 6L80 is kind of a beast of a transmission case, so it kind of protrudes up from the floor a little bit. The original transmission covers for these trucks are flat, unless you got one of these trucks that had the manual transmission, and then that floor cover has a little bit of a hump in it. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a manual transmission cover and use it for our automatic transmission because that 6L80E is sticking up a little bit. Then we're gonna retrofit that cover because it has a hole in it already for the shifter, and we'll make kind of a pass-through for our wiring harness to run everything right up the middle of the cab nice and clean. Let's get started. Guys, normally you would just drill a hole in the firewall and then run the smaller end of your harnesses, meaning where all the engine clips are, through this way, but we didn't have our cab on at the time. We just had our engine mounted in our frame, so our harness was all hooked up. I could just unclip it and then snake it back through that way, but to be honest with you, this BP automotive harness laid out so nice. I mean, you can't even really see it. The only thing you can really see up here is my oil catch can line and the injector and coil clips. I really can't see any loom at all. I mean, it just tucks away so nice and so clean. I just got it looking great, and I don't want to take it all apart again. So coming around to this side, we can see the end of our harness right there where it kind of breaks out to the engine, and there's an included grommet on it that's meant for the firewall. It just kind of comes up around there and in through the floor. We've got to tighten that up because I don't want it hanging next to the exhaust and leaning on that oxygen sensor like it is. Then it just pokes up right there through the transmission tunnel. So I'm going to start by disconnecting my temporary mission control over here. Got to be really careful with these because you don't want to bend those pins at all. All right, so we're all disconnected. We got our main harness over here to the side. So here's the transmission cover that we got. You can see it's got that kind of hump in the middle. It's not flat like the automatic transmissions are, but it does have this nice kind of cutout here for the shifter where we're gonna be able to use that and take advantage of that hole to pass our wires through. So what I want to do right now is kind of just do a preliminary fit to make sure these screw holes line up, because a lot of times with these aftermarket panels, they don't, and might have to re-drill it. So we're just gonna snake the harness through here gingerly and leave this flat on the opening and see if the holes line up. It's not leaning on the harness, but as you can see, it's teetering, and that's because of the seams right here in the floor. If we lift this up out of the way, you can see we got the seam right here in the floor, and it's just kind of lifted up. It creates this kind of hump right here, and that's what it's rocking on. Now, you probably wouldn't notice that as much if you still had the original automatic transmission flat pan, because since it's flat, there's not really any humps or creases in it. It'll just kind of conform to the floor and bend a little bit easier. Since this has that stamped molded hump in it, it's not going to lay down. I just put one screw right there, and here's where that seam is. I just kind of pinched it down with pliers, and now Barely any bend to it, maybe about 1/4 of an inch. So I think we're gonna be good. All right, so I'm gonna take this back off. You can see where I kind of pressed that down. It's a lot more flat now. So I've got one riv nut here, and I've decided that's how I'm going to fasten this down. They had original clutch head bolts here, which is like a screw that kind of threaded into here with a really weird head on it that they don't use anymore. So I could tap these, I guess, but it's just really thin metal, you know, and it's just weak. So I think it's better to have these nut certs in here. And I'm gonna go ahead and drill these out to the appropriate diameter to put my nut certs in. This way this can be removable. I could always through bolt this, but then taking it off would be like, you know, a real pain having to get under there with a wrench and someone on this side. So just keeping these threaded inserts in there will allow me to have this removable whenever I need to take it off, should I need to ever. All right, so the holes are all drilled, and I made sure by looking over the cover that they all line up with the cover itself, because a lot of times those aftermarket panels, the holes are not correct and they have to be re-drilled, but we lucked out, everything's perfect. So now that our holes line up, I'm gonna go ahead and install some RIVNUTs in the floor pan. All right, so I verified that all the screws do in fact fit and thread in. Did take a little bit of massaging to get it all to lay down right, but they're in. So what I'm gonna do now is take them all back out again. We've got to fabricate a little bit of a cover for that opening right there with a pass-through grommet for a harness. So I'm gonna end up repurposing this square plate. That actually comes from the vent door right on the other side. Right down there on the kick panel on the passenger side. I don't mind repurposing it because I'll end up making my own cover that kind of fits over that square hole and for the vent hole. And normally when I'm forming metal, I would kind of bend this to conform to fit that shape. But this is so thin that as soon as I put screws on the sides here, it's gonna pull it and bend it right into shape. Our harness calls for a 2 1/8 hole pass-through grommet. All right, so I routed our firewall grommet through and up the harness, and I made just a little slit here in our plate so I can get it around the harness and around the grommet. Adding a little bit of weather stripping here just to keep smoke or fumes out or whatever. So we've got plenty of slack on our harness. It's not tight or pinched or anything, and we are definitely way far from the header. I think what I might do is get one of those wire clamps and come around this and then take this bolt out and then clamp this down just so that it doesn't wind up loosening up over time and falling down on top of the header. It'll just hold it nice and firm without pinching it here or anything, just to keep it in place. Well, we've got plenty of slack on that harness coming out too. I have options. I can either run it under the seat and mount all my stuff this way, or up in here under the firewall, whatever I should choose. Definitely enough room to work with. I'll throw a little piece of foil tape down just to cover our seam that we made. Now I realize that looks a little funny with that harness kind of sticking up out of there like that, but you gotta remember there's gonna be a center console that we're gonna build in here and it's gonna hide all of that stuff. As a matter of fact, I'm going to use the center console as kind of a wire chase to run all my wiring harness for the back of the vehicle and anything else that has to come up to the front or anything like that. Even speaker wire or any type of power wire that's got to go to the back, anything, it's all going to be hidden right in there. I like the idea of having that little cover on there where that manual shifter is supposed to be, because even if I do a console shifter, I'm going to have a cable that's going to have to get routed through there. Or I may drill a hole in the back of that cover, I don't know, but it's just nice to have that option to pop that up and have another space to route wires through or whatever I need to do. Always good to have options. I think when I build the center console, I also want to make that in itself removable and somewhat easily removable, because if all the wiring, I mean all the harnesses, the engine harness and the vehicle harness and the fuse boxes and everything, and the ECM is going to be under there, I think it would be really advantageous to be able to take that whole console out in kind of rapid fashion, if you will. Or maybe I can construct one that's kind of like skeletalized, right? Like a skeleton that has panels that come off where the skeleton can stay in place so you don't have to remove the shifter, but you can just take panels off and be able to access everything that's in it. Food for thought. That's definitely going to be in another video. Well guys, that's a completed install of our transmission floor cover and of our pass-through for our engine harness. Hope you guys like that. Love to hear what you guys have to say. Leave it in the comments below. Love reading all your comments. I try to get back to every single one of them if I can. Guys, if you like this content, please consider subscribing if you haven't already subscribed. And as always guys, until next time, I'll see you in the shop.